Hey guys, this is B Communications, and welcome to my review of the 1982 cult classic, Basket Case. What's in the basket? A damn good movie, that's what's in the basket. Anyway, Basket Case is the directorial debut of one of my all-time favorite directors, Frank Henenlotter. Frank Henenlotter is a director who was first introduced to his work through Brain Damage, which I really enjoyed. And then from Brain Damage, I went and checked out Frankenhooker, which is another movie I really had a lot of fun with. He has this very unique sensibility with his films. He knows how to have fun with the concepts. He's very surreal. A lot of the humor in his films is surreal, out there, weird, wild, crazy. But I love his movies because they're so inventive and different. They have a good amount of social satire at moments, good social commentary as well, and they tend to be a little bit. I guess you can look into a little bit. You can look into somewhat deeper into them, but really, at the core, they're just fun B movies. And I really love how much fun Henenlotter has with his films, with the concepts. He really goes out there and he's not afraid to do it. And I love that. I love how fearless he is. And this his directorial debut is no exception. I mean, he kind of takes elements of, kind of, you could say, kind of like pro-choice, type versus non-pro-choice, kind of whole thing. Like, when is it wrong or when is it right to kill something, kill a baby or not, or whole thing, the abort thing, that sort of stuff. It deals with, what really, what is a freak? How do we treat freaks? Um, and also, it's just I love the fact these movies are very sleazy, but they're very entertaining. And his whole I wouldn't say inner city. I would say his subversive, gritty, type of filmmaking is really a joy to watch because it just is so unique. And he does a great job with this movie as well as the only movie I haven't seen of his. There's two of them. At first, I had seen this movie a long time ago. It's just I don't remember much. So when I watched it again recently, it was actually one of the. It felt like it was the first time again. Um, but I've seen Basket Case 2, but just like the first one, I haven't seen it in a long time. Third movie, I don't believe I've seen yet, except bits and pieces. And I haven't seen Bad Biology yet. But I will sometime in the future. But anyway, Basket Case became a huge phenomenon on home video. It became one of the biggest hits, rental hits of the 1980s. It became a really big hit. It was such a, excuse me, it was such a big hit on video that Frank Henenlotter was actually, his career was pretty much kickstarted at because of Big Basket Case success on not only on home video but in the midnight on the on the midnight movie circuit. So it was a big. It played as a midnight movie for several years, on 42nd Street and so forth. It was pretty big then, and it became even bigger on home video. In fact, Home Entertainment, the VHS companies, they pretty much have to thank Basket Case for their long run throughout the 80s, releasing independent horror movies or all kinds of movies and so forth. Basket Case is well regarded as one of the most influential and very popular cult films, let alone independent horror movies of the 1980s, and for good reason, because it is a really uh, unique, fun, interesting movie. It's creepy when it needs to be. It's got this eerie sensibility, but it also has this really refreshing sensibility of not taking things too seriously, which I like. But then when it needs to, when it builds up the backstory of Dwayne and Belial, it does a really good job with that. And I also think I just love how the fat film is like really does a great job with these multiple different um, aspects of the plot. For instance, it's a great horror flick. It's creepy. It's eerie. it has a great opening. It opens up, and it's you don't know what's going on except this guy's running away from something, and then you see a hand pop out of a basket and slash him across the face, and you're like, okay, what was that? So the film did a good job keeping your interest, and then finally it does show you what is in the basket. It's what's left of a Siamese twin that grew out of our main character Dwayne's side, and then as the film goes on, you find out this unique relationship that Dwayne and Belial have, that they used to be able to talk to each other psychically, but that's only when they were linked. And then you find out the reason why they're separate, and the reason why all these doctors are dying, and the reason why Dwayne is in New York is to, in a way, get revenge. And I like that aspect too. It's like it's part revenge flick, part horror movie, and then later in the film it becomes sort of a tragic love story between Dwayne and Susan, and his love for her, and how his brother Belial feels betrayed and is upset, and in a fit of rage ends up further endangering Belial and Dwayne's relationship. And it's also not only a tragic love story, but it's also a tragic story to begin with, when you find out about what happened, why these two were separated, why Dwayne and Belial were separated. Because when Dwayne was born, he was born with Belial growing out of his side, and his mother died in childbirth, and his father did not react well to that. And he hated the thing that was growing out of the side of him, and he called him a freak, and he wanted them to be put down. Like, he just wanted to bury. It was like, why is this alive? This isn't my son. I don't want this thing. And then he raised him to a certain age, and then finally he decided to hire these doctors to come to his home and set up a makeshift surgical table or whatever. Or it's not in his house. I think they drugged the kid, and then they took him to a doctor's office, and they separated Dwayne from his brother Belial by force. It wasn't voluntary. It was involuntary. It was an involuntary separation, and that's why the film pretty much becomes, in a way, a movie about separation anxiety, and that's another thing that makes it very unique. How many movies can you think of are about separation anxiety? And so the film pretty much, that's the flashback that you see about 40 minutes into the movie. And then the movie before then was, you already introduced to Belial and Dwayne and the whole agenda of killing these doctors, for revenge. And all the while, of course, Dwayne wasn't expecting to fall in love. And I like that dynamic. I love the pacing of this movie. It's really quick. It's not boring at all. It's definitely gory. If you're a fan of gore, or some really good gore set pieces, it's got a fun sense of humor. What's in the basket? What Easter eggs? And the whole scene where Dwayne gets drunk and talks to this one girl, Casey, I'm dying to ask you, what's in the basket? What's in the basket? My brother. It's like, ha, your brother. Enjoyable, fun moments, and also it has a kind of like it's got a kind of I would say it's got a freakish heart to it. And that's a weird sort of term to use, but it is kind of like these are Dwayne and Belial are kind of freaks when you think about it. Belial's really more of the biggest freak of the two, but there's a certain lovable quality about both Dwayne and Belial. There's a lot of sympathy for them, and that's what really makes the film, kind of makes it work really well, is that you care about Dwayne, and when you find about the story behind his brother, what happened and how he was separated. Yeah, Belial's not a looker, okay? Belial is a creepy looking thing, but it doesn't mean that he should be killed or murdered or thrown in the trash. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, just like any baby, just like any mother that doesn't want their child does not deserve to be thrown in the garbage just because they don't want it. I mean, it's still a living thing. may not like the way it looks, but it's still a living thing. And Belial is definitely one of those. It is one of those sort of, when is it right and when is it wrong, and to take a life. What is this thing really alive? Obviously, it is. And I like the aspect of how, interestingly enough, Belial first got revenge on the father, and cut him in half with a saw blade, which is pretty unique, ingenious way. You don't actually see him get cut in half; you just see the feet fall apart. But I mean, the movie had a budget of about $33,000, and I think it did a really good job with the budget. To be honest, and I know there were some issues. They shot in 16 millimeter and then had to blow it up, but I didn't really find it that much of a problem like some critics did. I thought it looked fine. It just added to the little bit of grit that the film, it added to the movie, really. It's already kind of like an exploitation B movie, cult type flick. It didn't need to be. It added an even more uniqueness to it, in my opinion. Definitely did look, kind of down and dirty. Down and dirty is definitely one of the best words, this type of movie, Basket Case. In fact, the company that released it was named Rugged Films Incorporated, and rugged is actually a good way to list the film as well. And so, I mean, yeah, a lot of fun moments. There's some good gore. I thought the effects, Belial, it really looks cheap. Well, it was cheap. It was made for $33,000, so it was cheap. And when you find out that it was made for $30,000 around there, 33,000, and you see the movie, then you come away being impressed because of how well Henenlotter used the budget of $33,000. And it was nice seeing stop motion in this. It was a nice bit of charm that added to the film. And I'd have to say it's definitely not a movie for everybody. Not for everybody's tastes. Frank Henenlotter movies aren't really for everybody's tastes. I mean, he's definitely an acquired taste. But if this does sound interesting to you, I'd recommend it. And also, I would say, if you're a fan of Reanimator, I think you might enjoy Basket Case. And really, Basket Case is not going to be that in-depth of a review because it is a very straightforward film. It starts out with you introduce this character named Dwayne. You're wondering what's in the basket. You find out what's in the basket. It's his brother Belial, and it's this whole revenge subplot, trying to get revenge on the doctors that separated him. That separated Dwayne and Belial from each other against their will, and this all sort of happens after their aunt's funeral. I like the character of the aunt, which shows that there's actually people in this world that can be compassionate towards a freak like Belial, and all interspersed throughout the film is this sort of fun sort of moments at the hotel Broslin, which isn't really a hotel. It's not a real hotel. Hotel Broslin is it doesn't actually exist. The main lobby parts are filmed in a propped open service elevator on Franklin Street, which is in the Tribeca section of New York. The scene at the end where Dwayne and Belial are hanging from the Hotel Broslin sign was actually filmed on an exterior building in downtown on Hubert Street, which is near Franklin Street. All the interior shots were done at several other locations, which are mainly friends' houses, etc., etc., which I think that's pretty cool. And they did a good job. I thought it was a real hotel. Did a good job using their budget once again, and ingenuity, and finding a way to stretch their budget the best way they can, and find the best way possible to make things work with the limited amount of money to work with, which is a lot of movies nowadays. Especially, I think a lot of movies in theaters could use that ingenuity again. The whole idea where we can't just do it with a computer. We can't just do it that way. We gotta think of some other way to do this. So they do the stop motion and they do all kinds of stuff. They do the way where they don't show Belial as much in some scenes. They just show the basket shaking while Dwayne's feeding him some burgers or something, and it just adds to the film. It adds to the B movie campy charm that the film has, and I think the casting I thought was really well done. I don't think the acting was the acting Oscar worthy? No, but you're not looking for Oscar worthy acting in Basket Case. I thought the acting was competent enough. I like Kevin Van Hentenryck as a lead Dwayne. I thought it was unique. It was a unique thing to see a type, sort of, not necessarily a normal leading man in a movie. And he's kind of nerdy, kind of tall, lanky guy. He doesn't scream leading man, and I like that. I like that he was cast in the film. I also really like the performance by Terri Susan Smith, who plays Sharon, or I think it's Susan. Yeah, Sharon. It's Sharon, not Susan. I believe it's Sharon. Anyway, just going off of what, yeah, it is Sharon. Wikipedia messed up and said it was Susan. It's Sharon. Anyway, Terri Susan Smith, she did a great job. I thought she was a very likable character. And yes, she was obviously wearing a wig, but I liked how kooky and off the wall she was. She was very eccentric, and that was nice to see. And it worked really well in such an eccentric movie. And a few other actors and actresses did a good job. Beverly Bonner as Casey. Robert Vogel was the hotel manager. I really enjoyed the hotel manager guy. He kind of sounded like John Belushi a little bit to me. I just love the whole stuff when every time something happens in the hotel. First happens when Belial freaks out after he feels that he and his brother might be getting apart because he's falling in love with Sharon, and he's getting pissed and throwing all this stuff around and screaming. And that's definitely another thing that adds to the film's weirdness. Is Belial himself is very weird and a very memorable character, but at the same time, also he doesn't really talk. So all he can do is either use his brain to talk telepathically with his brother, or just do this kind of baby kind of crying temper tantrums type stuff like. This is pretty much it, but it actually works pretty well. It's like he can't really talk, so all they can do is make guttural noises. And so he's freaking out, smashed in the room. And that's when I love how each time anything crazy happens in this hotel, that the manager guy has to come in, look in the room, or there's no anything going on. And then after other cops or whatever leave, or after, whatever happens, then he's got to tell all of the people in the hotel to go back to their rooms. And I like that aspect of it because it's like it's so boring at the Hotel Broslin, I guess, that all the hotel people living in the hotel like get out of their hotel rooms as soon as the sign of anything remotely interesting might be happening, hearing all this noise and commotion, and then after everything's settled down, then the hotel manager has to come in and say, "All right, everybody. Go back to your rooms. Go back to bed. There's nothing to see here. Get out of here. Go." I just like that aspect of it. I even love like a line of dialogue he has where he's like, "This isn't a hotel. This is a nut house." But anyway, I enjoyed that character. And Dr. Judith Cutter, played by Diana Browne, she did a great job too. She played like this really despicable character, and she just took forever to die at the end of the movie. And she gets a pretty memorable death. A bunch of scalpels right in her face, sticking out of her face. Lloyd Pace was Harold Needleman, a very kind of, scuzzy doctor. Bill Freeman plays Julius Lifflander, another guy who helped with the surgery. And so yeah, Joe Clarke plays Brian Mickey O'Donovan, who I think is a guy who tried to steal the money, Dwayne's money from his apartment, and then Belial found out about that and wasn't too happy. Now, but yeah, like I said, it's a really straightforward movie. That's some of the reason why I like it so much. It's really straightforward. It's, starts out with pretty much Dwayne and Belial getting revenge for their separation. That's pretty much what the main plot is. It's about Dwayne took Belial in a basket to New York to get revenge for their separation on these doctors and whatever. And it was all Belial's idea. And then on the while, Kevin Van Hentenryck, Dwayne ends up falling in love with Sharon. And then the movie actually has a really tragic ending. But I think it earned it. It earned this tragic ending where Belial ends up killing Sharon. And I really love the way that this is shot, where it is shot from the point of view of, kind of like the point of view as if Dwayne was actually himself was separated and he was running after Sharon, and he's running butt naked. He's streaking in New York, which I thought was really. I mean, Dwayne's streaking shot was shot without permits on a cold winter's night. To shoot the scene, the crew would first clear the sidewalks of any objects that might hurt Kevin Van Hentenryck if he stepped on them, and then he was let out of a heated van on one side of the block and met on the other side by another heated van. Once picked up, the van would drive him to another block. This was repeated until they got the desired amount of shots. And so that was pretty crazy, actually. So they shot without permits, which is what I thought. And in the middle of the night, running naked. And I love the way it's shot. It's like a point of view. It's really Belial who's going out, going after Sharon. And he's fulfilling sort of his desires. Because you realize later in the film that Belial kind of almost might want to experience a love of his own. Maybe that's why he's also really angry at his brother, because his brother can experience love, but he can't. No one would want to love him. And so there's a whole sort of scene where he literally is a part of himself, which is Belial, is going after, looking for the girl that he loves. And it's hard to explain. You have to see the scene. It's just a really well shot sequence. And from point of view, which looks like it's, his hands, Dwayne's hands massaging her breast, but really, her naked breasts, but really it's Belial who's doing it. And it's kind of the whole sort of thing. But you might get the idea that Belial tried to make love to Sharon before he killed her. She woke up and then she screamed, and then he ends up choking her. And then Dwayne comes back. He realizes Belial is doing this, and he runs to go, try to stop him, and he's too late. The woman that he loves is dead, and he rightfully so gets angry at his brother. He's like, I can't live like this anymore. And then ultimately his brother gets pissed. Belial actually grabs him by the balls, and they end up falling out the window, and they're holding on top of the sign at the end. And ultimately, tragically, Belial can't hold on, and so they fall down to the ground below. And I guess and then pretty much the film ends, a tragic ending where Belial and Dwayne are dead. They fell off the sign, the Hotel Roslyn sign, and to their death, which doesn't really make the sequel. I don't know how the sequel's going to make that not true. Really, I mean, the sequel, they're alive. Like, how? They fell off a sign a bunch of stories high, and it's pretty evident that they were supposed to be dead. But anyway, we'll see when I check out the sequel again. But anyway, the movie was actually meant to have a different ending. The original ending actually included Belial walking around Manhattan, but the director and crew soon realized that they did not have the budget or technical requirements to pull off such a scene. Instead, Frank Henenlotter wrote the scene with Dwayne streaking through New York. He called Kevin Van Hentenryck to get his approval. Kevin loved the idea, and it was shot the next night. And then to try to make the film appeal to a comedy crowd, the original distributor cut all the gore scenes out of the film. They were eventually put back in and re-released in theaters. That is subtitled the full uncut version. You can't cut out the gore. That's part of the film's charm. That's part of why it works so much. Or it works as a horror film. But anyway, yeah, and in addition to providing a face cast for the Belial puppet, Kevin Van Hentenryck also performed the mutant twins' voice effects. So he did perform double duty there. Well, did a great job. Anyway, I really don't know what to say about Basket Case. I mean, like I said, a very straightforward plot. It's got a tragic ending, but I think it earns it. And as usual, really excellent direction by Frank Henenlotter. Really uses this budget really well. He also wrote the screenplay. I thought he did a good job with it too. Very unique movie. Never really heard of anything like this since. I thought the score by Gus Russo was actually pretty solid as well. And the movie actually got a decent amount of positive reviews when it came out. It's got a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I honestly deserved higher than that. but a lot of it's got a fan base, and I think definitely that does deserve it. It's a film that deserves its fan base, and if you haven't seen Basket Case, it's definitely a basket that's worth checking out what's inside it. But I really don't know what to say about Basket Case. It's a rated at 5 stars. I really don't find much wrong with it. There's a few things, mainly the ending. I know it earned it, but I would have preferred to have it so Belial didn't really kill Sharon, because I really like that character. Or maybe something happens where they just Dwayne and Belial just resolve their differences. Maybe Sharon still dies, but they resolve their differences, and Belial and Dwayne go off, go leave New York and go off to, you know, basically on the run type deal. Or you could have the thing where Sharon's still alive and she accepts Belial, which would have been a surprise. She accepts Belial and Dwayne and becomes part of the family, and then they all go off and move out of the Hotel Braslin and go somewhere else. I would be actually pretty interesting ending, and I think that would be a little bit more satisfying than the way that it ends with Dwayne and Belial dying as well as Sharon. I mean, it's like a triple whammy of just bummer. But this wasn't meant to be an uplifting story. But I think I think the ending is just the ending is the one thing that I think could have been a little bit better. But it does earn it. It's not something that really pisses me off, but if I had to make a choice, I would probably choose a little bit more of a lighter ending. The movie it kind of has a dark tone, but it also kind of has a really kind of campy, over the top tone. So I really think it would have been perfect to have an ending like that, where out of the blue, Sharon just, you know, accepts Belial and Dwayne, and Belial's able to work things out with his brother, and so they can have a family again. So Sharon ends up taking the place of their aunt at the end of the movie. But anyway, I really don't know what to say about Basket Case. I rate out of 5 stars. Like I said, that one little problem. That's why I give it 4.5. Really solid film. Really enjoyable. Um, the perfect track record for Frank Henenlotter so far. The films that I've seen, I really enjoy his work. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Basket Case, and I will see you guys later. See ya.